Okay, so imagine this. You're a famous poet
Oh,
back in the early 1800s,
okay.
and you get a lock of hair in the mail from some admirer. So it's pretty normal, right, for a celebrity, I guess.
Yeah.
But what if that lock of hair was a little more intimate?
Mm.
And what if that admirer was a married noblewoman?
Okay.
That's just a little taste of the scandal that surrounded Lord Byron,
Yeah.
a man whose life was as dramatic as his poetry.
Yeah.
We are diving deep into Byron's life.
Okay.
During the peak of his fame,
Right.
1812 to 1815.
Right.
We've got excerpts from the Rest is History podcast and some contemporary accounts to help us out.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised to hear how much Byron's life mirrored the celebrity culture we see today.
Oh, yeah.
Complete with the obsessive fans,
Yeah.
the carefully crafted image,
Right.
and, of course, the salacious gossip.
Of course.
So what's fascinating is that Byron was arguably the first literary celebrity to achieve this
level
of fame.
Yeah. Childe Harold's pilgrimage made him a superstar.
Right.
And he knew exactly how to manage his image for the public.
It's like he was like the original influencer.
Yeah.
He cultivated this mysterious, brooding persona.
Right.
I mean, there are accounts of him
Yeah.
meticulously styling his clothes and everything.
Yeah.
Even preferring to appear at gatherings at night.
Oh, wow.
You know, just for that added dramatic flair.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
He was also very image conscious.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even evidence that he used chewing gum
What?
as an appetite suppressant.
Really?
Yeah.
Chewing gum for weight control in the early 1800s.
Yeah. Talk about being ahead of the curve.
That is a great trivia tidbit.
Yeah.
But this fame, as we often see, came at a price.
Yeah.
Byron's personal life was a tangled web of
Bruh.
complicated relationships.
Yeah.
And it's here where the real scandal begins.
Yeah, it's a story that rivals any modern-day soap opera.
Really?
You've got Lady Caroline Lamb,
Right.
a wild, eccentric aristocrat
Right.
who was completely infatuated with Byron.
Oh.
Think passionate letters,
Okay.
extravagant gestures,
Wow.
even dressing like a page boy to get his attention.
It sounds like something straight out of a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah.
Only with a lot more scandal.
Exactly. And then there's Caroline's mother-in-law,
Oh?
Lady Milburn,
Okay.
a shrewd and calculating woman
Oh, my.
who saw Byron as a pawn in her own game.
Interesting.
She encouraged Byron to marry her niece,
Okay.
Annabella Milbank,
Right.
hoping to manipulate the situation to her advantage.
Oh, so we've got a love triangle.
A love triangle, or maybe even a square.
Or a square brewing here.
Yeah.
Tell me more about Annabella.
Sure.
How did she fit into all this?
Well, Annabella was the complete opposite of Caroline.
Okay.
She was known for her piety,
Okay.
her intelligence, and her love of mathematics.
Oh.
She initially rejected Byron's proposal,
You
but
did.
later accepted,
Huh?
perhaps believing she could somehow tame his wild spirit.
It rarely works out as planned.
Yeah.
And to complicate matters even further,
Right.
amidst all this romantic drama,
Yeah.
Byron was harboring a dark secret, an affair with his half-sister,
Yeah.
Augusta Lee.
This affair, even in a time known for its social scandals, was particularly taboo.
Wow.
Both Byron and Augusta were acutely aware of the transgressive nature of their relationship,
Okay.
especially given their own family history.
You're referring to their father's
Yeah.
own incestuous relationship.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of emotional baggage to carry.
Absolutely. This hidden relationship really cast a shadow over everything,
Yeah.
adding a layer of guilt and secrecy
Right.
that permeated Byron's life.
I see.
And it's something you can really sense in the letters that they exchanged.
So despite all this turmoil,
Yeah.
Byron and Annabella do eventually get married. But their honeymoon was far from blissful.
It wasn't.
Tell me what happened.
Well, their honeymoon was a complete disaster.
Really?
Byron was erratic
Okay.
and revealed anxieties about the affair,
Well,
creating a deeply uncomfortable atmosphere.
yeah.
To make matters worse, Augusta actually joined them for
Huh?
a period of time,
Oh my gosh.
leading to a truly bizarre dynamic.
I can't even imagine the tension
Right.
in that situation.
Yeah, it was as if Byron was almost deliberately pushing Annabella away,
Yeah.
and eventually it all became too much for her to bear.
Right. Convinced that Byron was mentally unstable
Mm-hmm.
and fueled by rumors of his other affairs,
Right.
Annabella took their newborn daughter, Ada, and
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
This, as we know, marked the beginning of Byron's exile from England.
Right. She was convinced that he was engaging in other affairs,
Uh-huh.
potentially even homosexual relationships, which were
Right.
highly taboo at the time.
Yeah.
She became determined to gather evidence to justify a separation. And things took an even darker turn.
What kind of evidence did she find?
Well, she discovered things like a bottle of laudanum and a copy of the Marquis de Sade's Justine,
Oh, wow.
which certainly didn't paint a pretty picture.
Not exactly light reading for a honeymoon.
No.
Those discoveries combined with Byron's increasingly erratic behavior must have been
Yeah.
incredibly unsettling for her.
She even consulted with a doctor,
Just said,
describing Byron's belief that he was inherently wicked
wow.
and possessed by some sort of malignant spirit.
Ah.
The doctor's notes describe Byron as believing himself to be a fallen angel.
Wow. That's chilling.
Yep.
It makes you wonder how much of Byron's behavior was
Yeah.
a deliberate act of rebellion
Right.
and how much was driven by some deeper psychological turmoil.
Yeah, right.
It's at this point that Lady Caroline,
Bless her heart.
bless her heart,
Yeah.
decides to step back into the picture.
She does. She had just returned from Paris
Okay?
and was eager to get involved.
So Caroline, in a misguided attempt to support Annabella,
Perhaps, yeah.
revealed the rumors she had heard about Byron's affair with Augusta
All right.
and his alleged homosexual activities.
Oh.
And she even encouraged Annabella to use this information against Byron
Wow.
in order to secure custody of Ada.
So Caroline essentially threw gasoline on an already raging fire.
Exactly. London society was abuzz with gossip and scandal.
Right.
Byron already facing financial ruin.
Uh-huh.
And intense public scrutiny.
Yeah.
Was essentially advised to become a recluse.
Really?
He was told not to attend Parliament or even leave his house
Wow.
for fear of being attacked by angry mobs.
Can you imagine the pressure? This is a man who thrived on attention,
Right.
but was now completely shunned by the very society that had once adored him.
Exactly. And as the pressure mounted,
Yeah,
Byron made a fateful decision.
he did.
He signed the deed of separation.
Okay.
And in a final dramatic flourish,
Yeah.
left England.
His departure was carefully staged, wasn't it?
I read that his carriage was modeled after the one
Oh.
that carried Napoleon into exile.
Yeah, it was a meticulously crafted exit.
Wow.
He boarded a ship for Ostend,
Okay.
accompanied by his loyal friend Hobhouse, leaving behind a shattered marriage,
Yeah.
a damaged reputation,
Right.
and a country teetering on the brink of moral panic.
This is just the beginning of Byron's exile,
Yeah.
and I'm already hooked.
Good.
What happens next?
Well,
Does he fade into obscurity?
that's a great question.
Or does this exile somehow fuel his creative fire?
That's what we're going to find out.
Right?
What's fascinating is that instead of crumbling under the weight of the scandal,
Right.
Byron actually uses it to fuel his creativity
Interesting.
and transform himself into a literary icon.
I can't wait to hear more.
Yeah.
So Byron leaves England, branded a social pariah?
Right?
You'd think that would be the end of his story?
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, it's almost like this exile liberated him.
Exactly. It's like being cast out of British society.
Yeah.
Freed him from its constraints and expectations.
Uh-huh.
He travels across Europe,
Wow.
soaking up new experiences,
Okay.
meeting other artists and writers.
Interesting.
All of this feeds directly into his writing,
Right.
making it even more powerful
Yeah.
and resonant.
His poetry becomes an outlet for his emotions, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
The anger,
Yeah.
the sense of betrayal,
Mm-hmm.
but also a deep longing for the life he left behind.
Yeah, and this sense of being an outsider, this exile,
Right.
becomes a crucial part of his persona.
Right.
It adds to the mystique, the allure of the Byronic hero
Right.
that we see echoed in literature and film even today.
Speaking of the Byronic hero,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the rumors that ultimately led to his downfall.
Okay.
The accusations of incest and sodomy.
Okay.
These were incredibly serious allegations.
They were.
Even for a time known for its scandals.
It's important to remember the context of the time.
Right.
These accusations weren't just social gossip. They carried real legal repercussions.
Right.
But were they true?
Yeah.
It's difficult to say for certain.
Yeah.
The evidence is largely circumstantial
Okay.
and often comes from biased sources.
Like Lady Caroline Lamb, for instance.
Exactly.
We've already established that she was deeply infatuated with Byron.
Yeah.
And not exactly known for her reliability.
Precisely. And even Annabella,
Right.
as hurt and betrayed as she felt,
Yeah.
may have perhaps unintentionally exaggerated certain events
Right.
to strengthen her case for separation.
So there's a real question of truth versus perception here.
There is.
Do we have any evidence to counter Annabella's claims?
We do.
Okay.
There are accounts from Hobhouse,
Right.
Byron's close friend,
Yeah.
who actually investigated some of the claims Annabella made
She did?
and found them to be questionable.
Oh, wow.
For example, Annabella claimed Byron threw bottles at the ceiling while she was in labor.
Oh,
But
no.
Hobhouse found no evidence to support this.
Wow, so it seems we're dealing with a tangled web of truth rumor and potentially exaggerated accounts.
Yeah.
What about Byron himself?
Right.
Did he ever address these accusations?
That's the interesting part.
Okay.
Byron never explicitly confirmed or denied these accusations.
Really?
He seemed to almost play with the ambiguity,
Wow.
which only fueled the public's fascination with his private life.
It's almost as if he understood the power of this bad boy image,
Right.
even if it was based on rumors and half-truths.
Exactly. He becomes a symbol of rebellion,
Right.
a figure who dared to defy social norms.
Yeah.
And this image, as controversial as it was, only added to his fame, particularly in Europe, where he was seen as a romantic hero,
Oh.
a tragic figure exiled for his unconventional lifestyle.
It's remarkable how the scandal, which could have destroyed him,
Yeah.
actually becomes part of his legend.
This myth-making continues throughout his exile.
Right.
He embraces this image of the tortured artist,
Oh,
the brooding rebel. His poetry from this period reflects this.
Yeah.
It's raw, emotional, and often incredibly insightful.
You can really sense his evolution as a writer during this
Yeah.
period, can't you?
Yeah.
It's a move away from the romanticism of Childe Harold
Right.
to something much darker and more complex.
Exactly. One of his most famous works from this time is Don Juan,
Okay.
a sprawling satirical poem
Yeah.
that's witty, cynical, and often shocking.
Wow.
It reflects a Byron who is more mature,
Okay.
more self-aware,
Uh-huh.
but also more disillusioned.
So we see the rebel.
Right.
But now there's this added layer of introspection,
Yeah.
a willingness to confront his own failings
Mm-hmm.
and the hypocrisies of society.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that while Byron was living this dramatic life in exile,
Right.
there were still those back in England who were deeply affected by the scandal.
Right.
What happened to Annabella and Ada after the separation?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how they navigated life after Byron.
Well, Annabella, understandably,
Yeah.
was deeply affected by the events that led to the separation.
Right.
She devoted herself to raising Ada
Okay.
and became known for her philanthropy and social activism.
Good for her.
It seems she found her own path,
Yeah.
separate from the shadow of the scandal.
It's good to hear that she was able to build a fulfilling life for herself.
Yeah.
What about Ada?
Right.
Did she follow in her mother's footsteps?
Ada is a fascinating figure in her own right.
She is?
Remember how we talked about Annabella's love of mathematics?
I do.
That definitely rubbed off on Ada.
Right. She was quite the intellectual, wasn't she?
She was Ada Lovelace,
Right.
as she became known.
Yeah.
Is considered by many to be the first computer programmer. She worked with Charles Babbage on his analytical engine,
Okay.
a forerunner to the modern computer.
Wow.
Her notes on the engine include what's considered the first algorithm
Wow.
intended to be processed by a machine.
So in a way, Byron's legacy lives on not just through his poetry, but through his daughter's incredible contributions to science and technology.
It's a remarkable twist in a story that's already full of surprises.
Yeah.
Byron, the scandalous poet,
Right.
becomes the father of a pioneering figure in the world of computing.
It makes you wonder if Byron, with his own fascination with pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
would have been intrigued by the world of technology and innovation that Ada helped to shape.
That's a fascinating thought.
It is.
It's almost as if Ada inherited that same rebellious spirit,
Yeah.
that drive to challenge conventions,
Right.
but channeled it into a completely different field.
So we have Byron, the exile poet, finding inspiration in his personal turmoil,
Right.
transforming himself into a literary icon.
Yeah.
And we have Annabella and Ada forging their own paths,
Uh-huh.
leaving their own mark on the world,
Yeah.
independent of the scandal that overshadowed their lives.
It's a reminder that even amidst the most scandalous and heartbreaking of circumstances,
Yeah.
resilience and creativity can flourish in unexpected ways.
It sounds like Byron's story is far from over.
It is.
What happens next in this remarkable life?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
Byron's exile takes him to some unexpected places.
Right.
And leads him to embrace new adventures and causes.
Interesting.
We'll delve into that in the final part of our deep dive.
So Byron's in exile,
Mm-hmm.
right? His reputation in England is in tatters,
Yeah.
but he's not exactly living a quiet life.
No.
You mentioned new adventures and causes. What happens next?
Well, Byron's exile takes him all over Europe.
Okay.
He travels through Switzerland, spends time in Italy,
Right.
and even journeys to Greece.
Wow.
Along the way, he continues to have passionate affairs, meets other artists and writers,
Right.
and most importantly, he never stops writing.
It really is remarkable how he channels all this turmoil and upheaval into his work.
Right.
It's almost as if the more his life is in chaos, the more creative he becomes.
You could say that chaos becomes his muse, and his poetry from this period reflects this. It's raw, emotional, and often infused with a dark humor that is both unsettling and captivating.
Interesting.
He doesn't shy away from his experiences. He embraces them fully.
And his writing continues to evolve. We've talked about the shift from the romanticism of Childe Harold to the darker, more cynical tone of Don Juan.
Yeah.
What are some other key works from this period of his life?
Don Juan is a major turning point in his career.
Right.
But there are other significant works as well.
Okay.
He writes plays like Manfred and Cain that explore themes of guilt, rebellion, and the nature of good and evil.
Wow.
There's also his unfinished epic poem, Don Leon, which caused quite a scandal when it was published posthumously because of its homoerotic themes.
It seems like scandal followed Byron wherever he went.
It did.
Even after he left England.
It certainly did, but it's also important to note that during this time,
Byron becomes increasingly involved in political and social causes.
Oh.
He champions the cause of Italian unification.
Wow.
And eventually travels to Greece to fight for their independence from the Ottoman Empire.
So he's not just a brooding poet.
Right.
He's a man of action, willing to put himself at risk for his beliefs.
Exactly. This is a side of Byron that is often overlooked.
Yeah.
He was deeply passionate about freedom and justice, and he saw the Greek struggle for independence as a noble cause worth fighting for.
It's a far cry from the image of the self-absorbed, scandalous figure that drove him from England.
And tragically, it's in Greece, while fighting for this cause, that Byron meets his end.
He does.
He dies at the young age of 36 from a fever.
What a dramatic end to an already dramatic life.
It is, but even in death, Byron's legend continues to grow.
Wow.
He becomes an iconic figure.
Okay.
The embodiment of the romantic hero.
Right.
The brooding rebel.
Yeah.
The man who lived life on his own terms.
His influence on literature, art, and even popular culture is enormous.
When we think of those classic brooding torture heroes, the Heathcliffs and Rochesters of literature, we can see Byron's influence, can't we?
Absolutely. He sets the template for the romantic rebel.
Right.
The outsider who challenges societal norms.
Yeah.
And ultimately suffers for his unconventionality. Yeah. And his work continues to be read and studied today because it grapples with timeless questions about love, freedom, morality, and the human condition.
So in the end, how do we reconcile these different aspects of Byron?
Right.
The scandalous figure, the brilliant poet, the passionate revolutionary. Was he a villain or a hero?
Yeah.
A genius or a self-destructive mess?
I think he was a bit of all of those things.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so fascinating. Right. He was a man of contradictions, capable of great love and terrible cruelty, brilliant insights and reckless abandon.
Yeah.
He was both a product of his time and someone who transcended it, becoming a timeless figure whose life and work continue to spark debate and inspire us centuries later.
His story reminds us that history isn't just about dates and battles.
Yeah.
It's about the complicated, messy, and often scandalous lives of real people who made choices, both good and bad, that shaped the world we live in today.
Exactly. Byron's life is a reminder that the past is never truly past.
Yeah.
It continues to echo through the ages,
challenging
us to confront our own assumptions about love, morality, and the nature of fame itself.
Well, I think we've only scratched the surface of Byron's fascinating and controversial life.
Yeah.
If you're intrigued by what you've heard today, I encourage you to explore his poetry, his letters, and the many biographies written about him. Form your own conclusions about this complex and endlessly fascinating figure.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the scandalous life of Lord Byron.
It does.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a new topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.